black people are treated very much as the Vietnamese people or any other colonized people because we're used, we're brutalized. The police in our community occupy our area, our community as a foreign troop occupies territory. And the police are there not to, in our community, not to promote our welfare or for our security and our safety, but they're there to contain us, to brutalize us and murder us because they have their orders to do so. And just as the soldiers in Vietnam have their orders to destroy the Vietnamese people, the police in our community couldn't possibly be there to protect our property because we own no property. When we first started, we had a police alert patrol, and we would patrol the community. If we saw the police brutalize anyone, we put an end to this. Usually the police wouldn't brutalize anyone if we were on hand because we were armed, and if the police arrested the individual, we would follow him to the jail and bail the individual out, whether he was a Panther or not. And we would gain many recruits like this. So therefore the community started to say that, well, these people are really concerned about our welfare.
West Philly, what they call the top north side. You know, I attended West Philly High. I consider myself a West Philly speedy actor, they used to say. You know, I think I was a typical black youth. You know, I wasn't an angel and I wasn't a devil. You know, I did my things. You know, I joined the gang in the neighborhood. It gave me a sense of belonging. But to me, a lot started out to me with my generation. The Vietnam War was a big part of it, at least in my circle. I mean, the gang that I belonged to was practically emptied out by either the draft or a lot of us just joined for different reasons, you know. And I did, 3 years in the Army, a year in Vietnam. It had an influence on me. It kind of matured my political thinking. It gave me some self-awareness. And so when I came out of the Army, I wanted to be a part of something that was positive as far as advancing or organizing or help eliminate a lot of the issues that black people had to deal with. You know, I joined the Black Panther Party shortly after leaving the Army, which I was politically educated in there. And I definitely feel that I have a love for black people in particular and people in general. You know, I gravitate to I feel I gravitate to any people that are positive and basically have a good heart. You know, from the Panthers, we started a local organization, and we did a lot of work with street gangs and anti-drugs. And by the time I turned around, I had made 6 kids, and I felt the obligation to kind of take care of them, and the struggle kind of got put on back burner, but my ideas and philosophy I always tried to spread where I could. Um, to my children, to their friends, and to my friends, and just in general, I believe that once you have seeds planted in you, they're gonna grow, and it's nothing to do to stop that. If you don't deal with that, you kind of feel that you're cheating yourself, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But to raise my kids, I basically went back to what I knew, that I was a plumber. My grandfather was a plumber, so I used them skills basically to take care of my family, and I kind of profit from the skills that I had. Kind of, that, to me, that's a kind of short version of my life, you know, that it was between politics and raising a family and just doing what I can in the community to try to, you know, make it better.
When you talked to me earlier, you told me about joining the army at 17 years old. Is that right?
Yeah.
What made you join the army? What were the expectations that you had of the army, and why? You know, what was the thinking? I just want to get.
I got to be honest with you. My father put me out the house.
Okay.
And this was September. It was starting to get cold, and I joined so-called on a buddy plan with a friend of mine. He had got put out of his house, so we joined. We joined the army. You know, it wasn't no like today. You see the commercials, make a man and this.
Yeah.
I 3 hots in a cot. I'm not gonna BS you.
Were there other options than joining the army?
I didn't see any at that time. You know, I was very narrow-minded. Even though I graduated from high school, at that time cause I didn't like plumbing. You know,
Okay.
I just did it for the money. I hated going in people's basements. Back then, you didn't have a lot of finished basements, and a lot of plumbing was I done around toilets and unfinished basements, and I didn't like it. And
So you did the plumbing before you joined the army?
yeah. My grandfather was a plumber.
Oh, okay.
And I used to work with him on the weekends.
I understand.
He would, you know, I tell people we worked like a Saturday from sun up to sundown, and he would give me $5. I remember about the last time I worked with him, he paid me $40, and I was shocked.
Wow.
But I had earned it, but you know, I think he gave me the basis, and you know, I see a lot of young people today that they don't want to work unless they can get this. They feel they're supposed to get paid or start way up here.
Right.
But I came from a background that you learn to appreciate whatever you got, and as long as you got something. I feel that between the Army and the Panthers had such a big influence on the way I think and act and feel today. You know, I had to do things when I left. I spent like 8 years in organizations, and when I left, I had 6 kids, and I say I didn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. So I had to do, find a means of support. And a lot of times I worked, I formed my own company. I taught. I went to college for construction, and I said anything I do, I try to do the best at it. And so I try to elevate myself to a good craftsman. And I did, you know, sometimes I feel I did as much time as a lawyer, you know,
Yeah.
4 years of plumbing and apprentice school, 3 years at community college, and a year or two, year and a half at heating school. And
so you really value the education that you got.
yeah, I think the education helped give me a foundation that you know, and I've helped quite a few people over my lifetime to start businesses, to use their property. You know, I feel that, you know, I'm connected in as far as housing and trying to help people get decent housing, and that's what I've been doing for the last maybe 40 years. I volunteered to go to Vietnam. By the time I got in, my thinking had changed to where I felt that's how you prove your manhood, is go to war and fight. But in Vietnam, I got turned around by a guy from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And I feel he might have saved my life.
Can you tell me what happened? How did that happen?
Before I tell people, I went in the army a Negro and I came out a black man. Before I talked to this man, I considered myself a Negro. I had no political awareness at all. You know, I didn't know really what about racism, control, none of that. I figured life was just, this is it, you know. And he brought awareness to me. And after that, it turned me around. Originally, I wanted to volunteer to be in the infantry. But like I said, he grabbed me and enlightened me that really wasn't my war.
Okay.
And from that time on, all I was concerned was about getting back home.
Okay. So your attitude towards what you perceived to be the enemy changed.
Yes.
And can you tell me a bit about how that changed and how you saw them at the beginning and how you saw them after?
I think in the beginning, I didn't really, what could I say? I really didn't see them as a people. I mean, it was abstract. It was just something that, like, if you wanted to go and kill some Vietnamese and prove your manhood, that's what they're there for. But I got a more humanistic outlook to it.
Right.
And
what were the other soldiers like that you were fighting with? Did you
you had all kinds. You had some that, you know, I was in the first cab, and we, you know, guys from the field would come back and we would talk. We were sitting, and some guys hated the Vietnamese and called them goops. And to me, it was no different than I see the street gangs. They might have had a friend killed in combat, and they blamed the Vietnamese for that, and had a negative feeling toward it. Racism was so, I mean, you had Vietnamese that didn't like black people because of what they were told by white GIs.
Right.
And you know, some Vietnamese thought we grew tails because that's what they was told. You know, we call it ghosting. When you go on R&R, you don't go back to your unit. You stay in the rear. My rear was Iron K, and the Sin City was the city. That's all base. You had black bars and you had white bars.
So it was segregated.
Yeah, it was segregation. Same. I went to Hong Kong. The same in Hong Kong. I went to Mexico. The same in Mexico. You had black bars and you had white bars. And if you were black, you didn't really want to go to a white bar. But you had a lot of racism in the army. You come from a racist country. I did 2 years stateside before I went to Vietnam, and I was in Fort Hood, Texas. And Martin Luther King was killed in '68. Fort Hood, Texas had the only standing division in the United States. Every other standing division, when I say standing, I mean combat ready division.
Right.
The 1st and 2nd Army Division was at Fort Hood, Texas. Every other combat ready division was in Vietnam. And so they groomed us or trained us for riot control. The only reason I didn't go to Detroit or Chicago back in '68 because I came on levy to go to Vietnam. But my division, I don't remember where they went to Detroit or Chicago for riot control. And I knew I didn't want to do that. But like I said, at that time I wasn't very political.
Sure.
I didn't have any understanding that, we need to organize to give us power and uplift us. I had to honestly say it wasn't my father, but it was the what you call the old heads from the gang I was from.
When you were younger, they were your role models then?
Yeah.
And how did that change when you went to Vietnam? Who became
when I went to Vietnam and got politicized, it was Malcolm X, and mainly Malcolm X. I wasn't a reading person. About the only book I ever read was the autobiography of Malcolm X. I think I read 2 books in my life. Malcolm X and Bury My Heart and Wounded Knee is about the only 2 books I ever read. Because, I've read school books, I'm not counting that, but I'm talking about books on the side.
So Bury My Heart, Wounded Knee, so you have understanding of about Native American.
Oh man, that book, I can't say, but that book, I really wasn't educated in what was done to us as slaves at that time.
Yeah.
But Bury My Heart and Wounded Knee showed how cold this government could be. I mean, what they did to the Indian population. Yeah. I couldn't, that's why I had to keep reading it. Like I said, I'm not a reader, I'm still not. But just to see what the tactics they used against the Indians was mind-boggling.
So do you feel, after reading those books and understanding some of those issues, that there was a common thread between what was done with First Nation people as well as slaves?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, back then, I was in my early 20s. I was a very bitter person. I was bitter against just about everything. Yeah.
It's kind of understandable in that sort of era of what was going on and everything. Yeah. So if I can ask you a little bit about where you, from when you came back from Vietnam, what was the timeline or the process to becoming a Black Panther?
Once I became a Black Panther, what did you say, who did I have any role models became like Reggie Shell ran the Philadelphia branch of the Black Panther Party and Huey P. Newton, but I didn't know Huey P. Newton personally. So I had to say that personally, Reggie Shell was like a mentor role model to me. Me and him left the party and started a new organization, and even after that organization had phased out, we became or stayed connected up until he died. Our kids are connected with each other, but I have to say, he was the baddest man I ever knew in my life.
When you say baddest, do you mean best?
Yeah.
Just to make it
But
clear.
he didn't play. He didn't play either. He was very. He was a rough character. But people loved him. A lot of people loved him in this city. I know politicians, organizations across Philadelphia that came to him for advice or his blessing.
How did you get into the Black Panthers in the first place?
I had a buddy named Brown. We joined together, and I don't know where we was, but we seen some people selling papers, and we said, "Where's the headquarters?" And when we found out, we went down there, and they took us, two of us, right in. I was out in the army, he was out of jail. And those were usually make the best kind of soldiers, because you're not spoiled. You usually a hard worker and want to do something. They come from the type backgrounds.
What did you do? What was your role and your responsibilities that you had?
Well, I later became the second, they call it section leader of West Philly. We divided the city up, and I became subsection leader. But when people could call us for almost any problems, and we would go and try to deal with them, either by politicizing the area, protecting them. We would defend people. We would feed the children. We had clothing programs, breakfast programs. We had medical centers, and we just tried to answer the needs of the community. It wasn't being addressed. We felt kids were being sent to school hungry, and you can't learn if you're sitting up there thinking of breakfast. So we did that.
It's interesting because a lot of people I've spoken to in the past, they would have seen the Black Panthers as being a militant organization the same way that they saw Malcolm X as being a militant. But yet what you're telling me now, it doesn't seem like that was the main role. Is that correct, or am I misunderstanding?
I'll never forget a young guy that we became friends. I got in saltwater aquarium, and he knew a lot. And we became friends. He knew I was a Panther. He said, "Hawk, y'all was wrong. Y'all hated white people." I said, "No, we didn't. We had the Rainbow Coalition that was co-opted by Jesse Jackson. If you look at, to me, the movie Judas and the Black Messiah explains that David Hilliard started the Rainbow Coalition with the Young Patriot Party, which were a white organization from the Appalachian. They were poor white hillbillies. And the Young Lords was Puerto Rican organization. And you had the Yellow Seeds, who was a Chinese organization. So we had coalitions with all different kinds of nationality, but we believe that you should work And you know, if I'm black, I don't need to go tell the Appalachian people what to do, and vice versa. You
Right.
work, and we could have a common ground that we understand. We understand. That's my
It's okay.
text message. No, I did that to make sure I get them. One time that I would miss it was very important that I get text messages.
Right. I'm relieved that's what it was.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. It's so there was. It sounds like it wasn't. I'm trying to get my head around it. It's like a cross between almost like a nationalist movement in one sense, but it's also a very broad-based, multicultural movement as well at the same time. Is that correct?
Eldridge made an album called Dig, and I think, and we used to play that out in the community, you know, speakers outside you could hear.
Yeah.
But at the end of it, he would say, black power to black people, white power to white people, peace and freedom power to the Peace and Freedom Party, Black Panther power to the Black Panther Party. In other words, it doesn't have to be negative.
Mm-hmm.
White power is only negative when you want to use that to oppress and repress black people. But there's nothing wrong with white people wanting to have the things that they need to live and survive. You know, and so we're not against that. But of course, we're against the Klan who feel that we have no right to anything.
Sure.
You understand? There's a difference.
When we're talking about modern movements like Black Lives Matter, my understanding of it is that the full idea is black lives also matter as well as everybody else's lives, whereas some people interpret that as black lives
only
matter.
Only black. And the thing is, it's not that I'm not going to say that I'm a advocate of that slogan, but what they're saying is, behind racism, black lives don't matter when other lives do. And that's all they're saying is a reaction to the racist. You don't see white people, you're not gonna see a cop with his knee on a white person until they take the breath out of him, or just shooting down in the street and said, I thought I had my taser in my hand. No, that's why they say Black Lives Matter, is that they're talking about the people that's supposed to protect us and maintain the laws, or not maintain, but enforce the laws of this country, are detrimental to us. They don't protect us. In other words, they beyond racism, they feel that a black life, you know, doesn't matter. And you could revert back to what's his name, that was an escaped slave, that when they said that, I used to know his name, I forgot, but Dred Scott. Dred Scott case where they said a black man is 3/5 of a man. So we don't have the right that a white man has, and that's still, it's not said publicly, but it's still practiced. I mean, it's reality that a double standard in this country. And that's where Black Lives Matter come from. I don't, like I said, I don't particularly advocate that slogan. I don't,
would you say you support Black Lives Matter then, or no?
I wouldn't be against it, because I feel that we used to have as a saying, say, I'm gonna do something, I don't care if you spit. To, you know, do something. So I'm not gonna knock that movement while I sit home and watch them on television. I'm not gonna knock it. But I'm not gonna say that would be my strategy.
Yeah.
You know,
I understand. You've got a nuanced view on that.
Yeah, I got, and you know, I sometimes I feel, what's the word? I feel that I'm not doing enough that I should be doing. But I feel like I'm powerless because once I was part of a vehicle that people could struggle. You know, to me, the Panther Party was something anybody could use to for issues that affected us, and that I thought I had power being a part of that. Now I feel powerless because I'm not a part of anything.
You told me how you joined up with the Black Panthers, and you told me a little bit about what you did with them. Can you tell me some details about the famous picture that was taken at the time of Rizzo? Can you give me a little bit of background first, and then explain what happened at the time of the raid?
What happened with the raid was Rizzo was he was commissioner then, police commissioner, and in a short period of couple weeks or whatever, you had a few police that were shot, and Rizzo felt that our rhetoric, you know, was the cause of it, and he said after a police was shot, he said by the morning I'm gonna have all these revolutionaries in jail. So we knew he was coming. And they did have a pre-dawn raid on three sections of the Panther Party. There, North Philly headquarters and the West Philly section, and I believe Germantown. And basically, it was because police getting shot not by Panthers but by other individuals.
So it was a political move that he made.
Yeah. He felt he could use that to destroy the Panther Party or the Philadelphia branch of the Panther Party, but it backfired.
How did it backfire?
People were highly insulted, especially since they stripped us naked in the street. The people felt insulted by that, and it brought a lot of attention and sympathy with the party here in Philadelphia
From the
raid.
But was this across both Black Philadelphians as well as white? I mean, across the board.
I can't really say about white people. I can't honestly.
Sure.
I know in the black community it did. I can say that I'm sure that we had white sympathizers, we had white supporters, both politically and economically, that donated to the party, and
Oh really? I didn't know that. There was.
Yeah. Well, you had like you know, the Jews felt alignment with the party because of them in the Holocaust and us in slavery. So they felt some type of alignment there. And you've had, I mean, throughout the history of this country, you've had, I think, white people that sympathized and was humane. Simple as that. They were humane and could see the atrocities to black people and the Indians. And it sickened some white people, that sickens them. You know, I never forget, I was a foreman in the Philadelphia Housing Authority. This white guy come out the street, he had seen these two plumbers getting out of one of our trucks talking about nigga this, nigga that. And he came in the office and reported them. Because, you know, you do have some humanistic white people, no doubt. Just like you got some barbarians.
Sure.
That ignorant, racist, and dangerous. And you have some sympathizers that really feel the plight of the human race and the struggle of humanity, regardless to their color.
What happened after the Black Panthers raid and all that? Did you how much longer did you stay in the movement?
Well, no, I stayed. I did 6 years with the Black United Liberation Front, the organization we started. And locally, I feel we had more influence than the Panthers did locally.
Oh wow.
Panthers was an international organization at one time, and that gave them a lot of power. They had Vietnamese, the North Vietnamese government would have traded, it was called Pilots for Panthers. That's the type of connection we had internationally. They would have traded some captive United States pilots for some of the Panthers that was politically locked up in jail.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, it was a program called, not a program, but let's say a slogan, Pilots for Panthers, that made that relation. But we had international with Palestinian, the IRA. I mean, the Jews didn't like our alliance with the Palestinians and Arafat and all, but we felt they had a just struggle, and that they had been moved from their land so the Jews could homestead after World War II. And just because what the Germans did didn't make it right to do that to the Palestinian people. But we had coalitions and alignments. Some Panthers ran to Cuba and got asylum there, and some that Algiers got asylum. So it was an international organization, but let's say the FBI did have a hand in destroying the Panther Party, and we left, and shortly after the raid, and started another organization that citywide, I think we became politically powerful. A lot of organizations came to us for support and our guidance.
Does that still exist today?
No.
What happened to it?
Just fizzled out. The Black United Liberation Front. I remember when I left, it was just me and probably Reggie. But
how long ago was that?
70. Well, I left in 77 about, but I went back a couple times. We went back and to stop Rizzo. Rizzo tried to, I don't know if you know about him trying to change the city charter.
No, don't know anything about that. Please tell me.
Well, he was the mayor from 72 to, I guess, it was 8 years, I guess. Whatever, that seemed like that would be 80. I don't remember it being 80. But I guess it had to be, I can't remember the years, but he wanted, the city charter only allowed you to, just like the president of the United States, 2 terms.
Right.
And he tried to change that so he could run for office again.
Right.
And so we had to just say no campaign to stop that, which was successful. But that was about the last hurrah for me. After that, I went to the more the family atmosphere of raising my kids, going to school, doing some teaching. And
you were telling me before how much you value education, and when I asked you previously, you said that was one way of trying to deal with these with racism. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, what I learned from my grandfather, basically, he didn't teach me, well, this is that, that's this. I just watched it and ran, and he sent me to the truck with tools. And back, I really started plumbing, let's say, on my own in the late 70s, early 80s. You had a lot of plumbing suppliers. All your plumbing suppliers in the city were white. This was before Home Depot. And the racism was if you went into the plumbing supply and didn't know what you were talking about, I need one of those things that they would embarrass you. And I didn't like that. So I went on a campaign to not educate myself, but get educated so that they couldn't do that to me. And so I went and I learned my trade, you know.
Becoming a master plumber.
Yeah, I learned my trade.
What do you think in today's world where we see still a lot of division, there seems to be some hope coming from younger folks, but there still is a lot of division when you look at Philadelphia, for example. You have neighborhoods, sometimes people don't know each other's different culture because they've never really gone into those neighborhoods or have friends from that. My question is, what do you think could be done to unite people more?
I mean, to me, it's information. That's what we believed in the Panther Party, is to get out the correct information. That makes all the difference in the world. If you get wrong information, you're gonna come to wrong conclusions. So I think that was information was the crux or the linchpin of the party. That's the key to organizing, to doing anything, is to get correct information and hope that people will use their own intelligent and humane instincts to rally around that. Because you can see, to me, Trump is the perfect example of what information can do. I mean, they had a coup d'etat in the capital of a country that been fighting coup d'etats around the world for years, and he did that with misinformation.
How do you deal with misinformation like that? I mean, if anybody who follows a certain media platform, aren't they going to automatically believe whatever that media platform puts out?
I mean, the reality is that's the case. That's the case, and I don't know. It's been a right and a left in this country. I don't know how long. It still is. This country basically divided down the middle. I think that's never going to change. I just think that you have to represent power to make it where if they get information that they don't act on it because of the power that lies over here. I think black people are victims because they have no power. And I think a perfect example of what power does is the Vietnamese War. You know, before you go to Vietnam, they send you to what they call the ARVN training. And first thing they tell you is, when we first went over there, they called him Charlie. They say, now we call him Mr. Charlie. That's respect. And of course, the United States could have bombed them and wiped them off the face of the earth. But politically, they had to respect the power of the Vietnamese people. And I think that's what it's all about, is that you have to have a consequence, a power to equalize things, because I think as long as there's a sun, you're gonna have a right and a left.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
What could be the consequence in the modern age that we live in now?
Well, I believe. I mean, I seen a video of an army a black army that had mobilized against the Ku Klux Klan. They said, I think you need that type of power. I mean, I think that one of the most powerful weapons we have is the dollar. That we don't use it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
That
Are you suggesting defunding institutions?
no, I'm suggesting boycott.
Boycott, okay.
I think that basically you have industries that influence and run this country, and that you can influence them by taking their economical power. That's all that anybody understands. They understand power. And right now, we do not use the power that we're capable of. I mean,
you were talking about
voting.
everybody.
Yeah, well, no, I'm saying mainly the black community. I think we're on the bottom of the totem pole. I mean, realistically, I think that's what makes everything work, is the fact that the system has to keep somebody on the bottom. And I think we've been elected. And that's what makes the thing work. Make us look like the criminal, use us as a fear tactic. All that helps promote and maintain the status quo. And I think the only thing that'll change that is not us walking down the street with Bibles or candles, but being able to deliver some kind of consequence.
You mentioned earlier about having Malcolm X as your role model. Do you think it's still relevant?
Well, I mean, Malcolm said the ballad of the bullet. And he said that to use our voting power. I don't believe we even do that. You'd be surprised at how many young people did not vote against Trump. They really didn't care. And all they cared about was that they got that stimulus check. I mean, I talked to a lot of young people. I didn't take no survey, but I think based on dialectics, you know that people follow a trend. And you talk to basic young people that's in that same trend or trend, you find that they don't care about voting. But if any politician, people are scared of Trump because of voting. They ain't scared that he gonna raise an army up against them. They fear that he'll say, don't vote for this senator, congressman. And we could have that same type of power if we were organized and had correct information.
I understand what you're saying. It's I think the information part is still very tricky, because how are you going to separate what's fact and what's fiction?
You have to bombard people with correct information, and it's no stopping that. I mean, we done dealt with gangs, drugs, and they turned a deaf ear to correct information, if that's what you're saying. But I think you got a core of people that want to do better. And that's the people you got to talk to. You're not going to get everybody. I mean, that's a fact. You're not going to influence everybody, and you're not going to change everybody, and you're not going to organize everybody. But you have to have, to me, what we used to say, Rizzo voters, they going to come out and vote. They're not more, there wasn't more Rizzo supporters than anti-Rizzo, but Rizzo supporters going to come out and vote.
Right.
All anti-Rizzo supporters are not going to come out and vote. And that's the same with Trump.
In terms of what motivates people, how much do you think fear plays a part in how people act, particularly in Philadelphia? I hear, not having lived in West Philly myself, but when I talk to people generally, I hear there's fear about that. Is that something that you think is a legitimate concern? Or?
Yeah, of course. People fear, yes. They fear getting killed. They fear if they do something, what are the reprisals going to be, of course. They use fear. I mean, most of your white wing politicians, their basic platform is fear. Fear of socialism, fear of communism, fear of crime. I mean, Trump even said, keeping poor people out of your neighborhood, moving in there. He didn't bite his tongue.
Yeah.
But you had people that fear black people moving in their neighborhood and bringing down the value of their home. I mean, and their home is everything to them. Again, I think everything goes back to what I said is power. Power, you have to put fear in the politicians. That if, you see how the right wing is using power and fear to get what they want. They use that to, I mean, I can't remember, my memory's so bad, but, just like the vote to impeach him, or this, I mean, they know this man is lying, and the fear of losing votes outweigh the truth and the right thing.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
they follow a blatant lie.
Yeah.
And it's fear of the power.
Many people, black people as well as many white people, live below the poverty line. Is there a way to unite these people so that they have a common goal that will make their struggle more effective if they're working together?
I think what you trying to say is an integrated organization.
Yeah.
I don't know if I particularly agree with that, because I think that you need a white entity to go into the white community and preach the truth. Just like you need a black entity to go in the black community and preach the truth.
But that might have some coalition between them.
I think the Rainbow Coalition will work fine. Let look, hand in hand, we brothers. We both had the same problems. We both had the same needs, and we're not the reason for our tragedies. I mean, we black people are just as much a victim of crime, if not more, than white people. But they don't see it that way. They see them as victims of black crime. But so, I mean, crime is crime. And I don't care at any given time, whatever ethnic or nationality you had in so-called ghettos or poor communities, well, that's where the crime was. I don't care if it was the Italians, the Jews, whatever. When slaves were down south picking cotton, they wasn't you still had inner city crime. So crime is an economic thing. Whoever has the least, and then that's just a certain crime. You still got white collar crime. I mean, you got educated white collar people that are out here robbing people with scams. I mean, to me, one of the biggest things of the day, I say half the world works, the other half is out there scamming them out their money. And that's not a black thing. I mean, we're just more visible because of the news media and cause, I say the news media and this and the guns, the fluctuation of guns into the hands of young, lost black youth. You give an uneducated, immoral person a gun, which is the greatest power in the world, you know, what do you expect them to do with it? And start young. I don't really think it's these individuals out here that would shoot a pregnant woman in the head and then in the stomach. I don't think there's no reasoning with a person like that. But you have to get somebody, and it's so much propaganda out here. I mean, you got television shows and you got rap records and all that's justifying this type of behavior. So you're fighting almost an impossible battle. But I don't think, me and a guy got in an argument in the barbershop. I don't feel it's a majority. I feel it's a minority that is doing this, but when you put a gun in the hands of, let's say in Philadelphia, you put a gun in the hand of 500 people, youth, uneducated youth, they can create a lot of damage. You have 500 murders. So let's say, and they might not be all different individuals. Some of them might have 2 or 3, what they say, bodies on them or hits. But you're talking about 500 youths out of maybe 100,000.
Yeah.
That's go to school, trying to do something, trying to get in sports, using other ways to get ahead.
I see what you're saying.
And so, with propaganda and stereotyping, it makes it look like it's this big threat out there. And it's being used for people to promote their platform. But you have people, you have a community out living in fear. I better not do nothing where I'm gonna live. The cops talk about, the cops talk about you don't help. And the cops will throw you to the wolves. You talk about, you got a woman or a family, he got his kids, she got her kids, and you go out there and do what they call snitching. You're a target. And ain't nobody gonna help you or protect you. Police, they go home at night. So the reality of the situation is people living in fear. And there might be 1, 2 guys in a given community that got the whole community living in fear because they know he might have 5 other guys. If he go to jail, at least 3 or 4 or 5 other guys on the street that you can tell, man, hit him. So, like I said, you know, black people have to fear white racism and black crime. Or I say black crime and white crime. Drugs have been such, I think, vicious weapon that was used basically to divide and repress the black community. And
what kind of drugs are you talking about?
I think it really started with the crack epidemic. I think that was because that was a drug that mainly concerned or encompassed our women. And for years, the black community was a matriarchal community. And to come at our mothers was, I think, was crucial in finding where we are now. You know, crack babies, mothers that, and I don't want to blame it all on the mothers, because, you know, fathers, they bailed out too. But I definitely feel that the crack epidemic was very influential.
Instrumental.
I want to say influence.
Right.
I don't got a lot of vocabulary over the years, but it influenced the direction of the struggle and for our equality. And I don't think that we recovered from that yet. Even though crack is, to me, is nothing like it was, and it's not encompassing the mothers like it was, but the influence it had for a couple of generations, we still feel the effects of. Solutions. I just gotta say, you know, that I see some positive young people out here. I want to say at the least, I think we should try to plant seeds for the future. You know, always try to pass on correct information. I'm saying at the least.
How would you do that?
I mean, I think you just got to show them that it's better ways. And of course, we're up against a lot. We're up against a lot of misinformation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that the entertainment world passes on a lot of misinformation and creates illusions that capture our youth.
That's interesting. Like, can you give me an example?
Well, the illusion is that they can be successful being drug dealers and killers. It's just a lot of shows on, to me, that glorify drugs and the selling of drugs and the whole image of coming up through the use of criminal life.
Violence.
Yeah,
guns.
And our jails are filled with people that's trying to live that type of life. And I think we gotta snatch them while they're young, before they get indoctrinated into this type of life.
Do you think that there's any new or more modern positive role models that you
I mean, I've seen some of these. I've even seen football players that, well, the positivity made me like the. I seen some of the guys on the Buffalo Bills.
Hmm.
They were saying some positive things, made me like the team, made me want to root for them because they were saying some positive things. And I think they got to keep it up. And I don't mean positive just showing somebody how to throw a football, but giving them some identity to what we're really all about, what's happening to us, and where we're going to try to go. You got to explain what's happening out here today and what it's doing to us, as a people. That all we want is a decent life, a decent chance to live, to work, give people a chance. I think you give people a chance to work in a different job. You got a different person. I've seen it. I've lived with one of the biggest gangs in Philadelphia, the Valley. And I seen these guys, it was night and day when they had a job. Sometimes they would get summer jobs just for the summer. And if they saw together a different person when they picking up a check and can get some decent clothes and have some money in their pocket. So you got to be able to understand that and explain it. Information is the key. It's the beginning.
Information or education?
Both. But, you get a messed up education, you get the wrong information.
Yeah.
And, we had education that in our history books didn't tell the real history. So I'm saying information.